Doing good. How are you?
I got here at 2 o'clock straight up, ready for a 2 o'clock meeting.
Yeah, but they can't hear us though. We gotta stop those people that are listening at home.
I know.
They can't hear us.
We couldn't get everybody here. We couldn't get a nailed down date, this month. We're having, I can't be there. So we moved it around until we finally could get everybody here.
For you, hey, 3 minutes. I'm proud of it because it did start at 2:30. To be honest, so we're good.
We did okay.
I couldn't go to
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
but
I was stalling for a couple of minutes here, but now that it looks like we've got the full board, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order at 2:33. If I could I get one of you guys to volunteer to do our invocation first? Dr. Kurt, that'd be great. Thank you.
Heavenly Father, Lord, we humbly come to you today, Lord. We just thank you for this time where we can get together and go about the business of your city, Lord. We just pray that you give us wisdom in the process, Lord, to be with us through this day. And we pray for our community and our leaders and our first responders, Lord. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Nolan, would you be nice enough to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance? Could you do that for us? All right. Thank you. If you would, wherever you want to stand.
Where do you want to stand? Okay.
All right. All right.
better turn the ringer off my phone and scare somebody to death.
Perfect.
You could.
The flags are right. Here's the American flag.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Can you lead us in the Texas flag? All right.
On the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you very much. Great job. All right.
Chris, one quick point of order. I attended the ECISD board meeting, and one of the things that they did at the very first of their meeting was to, announce, disclose, whatever, that they may take some of the items out of order.
So are you wanting to do a motion to suspend the rules?
Well, no, that's not what they do.
Okay.
They basically, they announce that they may take the items out of order. And so what I would like to do is maybe ask Dan if you would mind checking with them. How do they do that? To me, it's a real simple thing that we don't have to suspend the rules, and we can go on about if we have to take something out of order because maybe we have a guest that needs to leave or something like that, it makes it easier to do that.
Yeah, like in council, we do like a motion to suspend the rules,
Yeah.
and then you can move it around. That's
Yeah.
what we usually do.
But would you mind checking with them and see how they do that? Because I think that's a simpler solution, then you don't have to have a motion and a second and a vote on it and all that. It's a lot more efficient to me.
Something in Robert's rules there.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent. Has everyone had an opportunity to review the minutes of the April 11th, 2024 meeting?
Yes.
Move for approval.
Okay, no changes? Excellent. I have a motion and a second. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Hearing none, motion carries. Right, brings us to contractors' reports. Let's do the Economic Development Department. The wonderful one and only Tom Mansky.
I don't know anything about that, but good afternoon. A little tired, traveled some lately, and it's been anybody suffering bad allergies this week?
Yes.
It's been a bad week. I've got a headache. Got the project list on, I don't know what page that is, because the page number didn't print up for me, but you see where my packet begins. Project Kingmaker, you'll see that's the second one on there. They are planning, we're talking to them about in the next 90 days, bringing a site visit to Odessa. The principals in that organization are out of Tennessee, and we got a couple phone calls. Actually, I need to give better information to my team because a lot of it's been me on the phone with them, and I haven't shared everything, and I just reminded myself that. Project Repo is actually something that you're gonna consider in your June meeting, and I'm gonna make mention, there are 3 items on your agenda today that when y'all get to them, you'll probably be amongst yourselves requesting to table them because we didn't finish up the EDAs, and we couldn't get the EDAs to the city for resolutions and such. The attorney, I didn't realize was, it's a big deal, his son graduated college last week and was out of town all week. And so, I didn't hear from him until Monday, and that was after we posted the meeting, so we couldn't put everything in there. But we did reach out to all 3 companies, said, is this an issue? If we need to talk to the board about a special called meeting, we're more than happy to do so. None of them expressed that need. So all 3 of those projects will be things you'll be considering for an economic development agreement in June. Very good projects. One, a new location in Odessa, another one, an expansion, and a third one, Sparks is an expansion too, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so 2 expansions and 1 new facility, but they're all good projects, and they've all been through compliance, and so you'll see those on a future agenda. And then I will mention, I've talked a lot about it for a couple of years now. We've had the electric vehicle battery manufacturer. They're actually in town for a full day next week. I was hoping to be longer than that, but we've already started setting up meetings with them. And so they're coming in. There's some new federal legislation with regards to not dealing with the Chinese with electric vehicles and charging and such. That is now putting another greater emphasis on them pushing their project up. So they will be in town next week to meet with them. I'll mention last week I was in Minneapolis for most of the week at the Clean Power Show up there, and ran across a company that actually has, they call it behind the meter. This company does wind and solar projects. Solar's the one they usually do on a behind the meter type deal, and that's where they tie in with the company and provide the electricity for them. And it provides that company a lot of savings. And in talking to them at our booth one day, they've done this for an electronic vehicle battery manufacturer before. And so we wound up talking for about an hour. They now are actually gonna be, they're gonna zoom into our meeting with our prospect when they're in town next week to discuss what they could possibly do for them if they were to partner here in Ector County. And so, normally you don't walk out of trade shows with a potential project right in hand. It's a long-term relationship, but maybe, hopefully this can turn to something sooner than later. After the first page, on the next, I will mention Project Molecule, which was the ancillary project with 1.5, the DAC project out in northwest Ector County. They did get abatement from Odessa College, and they were pleased with it. I don't know yet if they've made the final decision, but the last I talked to the consultant a couple of days ago, things looked very good for that $85+ million project coming to Ector County and being part of the 1.5 project. And with that, as far as movement, I will mention, because we're going to try to set up some more in the future. Earlier in the week, some board members and compliance committee members and others went to tour Oryx, which is one of our projects that should be considered in June. It's an expansion project, and that also led to their sister corporation, kind of across the parking lot, RexTac. Y'all, I'm sure we'll discuss it in your board comments later, but very valuable tour and visit. I think it was a big eye opener for a lot of people. You don't realize that's going on here every day in Odessa, and it's a very valuable asset to have in the community. And it was a really neat tour, and I invite y'all later during your comments to share. I know I've talked to Chris, and I think Mike Withrow called me about it later to say how pleased he was with it and everything. With that, you see our BR&E visits, some of the other activities we've done. I'll be happy to address anything or any questions you may have individually. I'm gonna keep it kind of short, because I did want to mention also, did Caroline and the Pancho make it with? The Pancho, okay, I'm not calling you up yet. Okay. But I am in a second. We did not put this on our agenda, but it's not, something you're consider for action. Y'all had asked us about getting an update from, 1.5 on what's going on out there. And they did agree. We didn't have it on the agenda in time, but I thought since it's a non-action item, I would include them in my report. And I'm gonna ask if you don't mind coming up, introduce yourself and update the board on what you have, and I'm done, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Come on up.
So is there a way I can actually share some slides up there?
There is.
Oh, I don't know. Were they not here? We had Nolan's recital. He's here on recital. Okay.
Now, I will mention while they're finishing that, and for his knowledge too, because I know Tim Harris, a new member of the ODC board, he probably is aware of it, but the ODC board, back when they approved this project, pledged for the 1.5 project, $2.5 million as an incentive grant over 5 years to do that project here in Ector County. And so, so it's one of our bigger projects of late, and I'm sure y'all are appreciative of the support. I can say thank you.
And I don't want to take up a lot of time, so let's give it a few more minutes, and otherwise I'll just kind of speak
To be great.
from my slides up here. There was a cool picture I wanted to show you that showed the picture of the development site. Okay.
There we go.
Oh, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much for the
All
help.
right, thanks a lot. Yeah. Well, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dipanshu Kumar. You can call me Dipanshu or Kumar, whatever you find easier to pronounce. I am a senior projects advisor for our projects team at Stratos. And I'm here today to give you an update on Stratos and our sequestration project. But before I get started, I just wanted to take a moment to thank the ODC for extending this opportunity to us to actually come and speak to you in person. You know, Oxy's success is closely tied to the communities that we live and work in. And so we consider it really important that we do meaningfully engage with these communities and stakeholders. Now, part of this engagement is being here, in participating in events, supporting local organizations, charitable organizations, institutions such as schools, colleges. But for us, a really important part of this engagement process is in-person meetings, because that gives us the opportunity to speak directly to the community members and be able to address questions that they might have for us. So again, thank you for having this. I mean, it's especially important for projects like direct air capture and sequestration, because these are not words that are very common in everyone's vocabulary, at least not yet, and we hope it will change once our projects are online. So with that, let me go to the next slide. So a question could be asked, why is Oxy doing this? Right, so Oxy has more than 50 years of experience with carbon management. And by that I mean we have been processing, transporting, injecting, and storing CO2 right here in the Permian Basin for over 50 years. So we have the know-how, we have the technical expertise to really understand what is going on with that CO2 when it is injected deep below the surface. We also have a large Oxy chemical business. So we know how to safely operate large industrial facilities. And we have experience executing multi-billion-dollar projects, both in our oil and gas side of business, as well as our chemical business. So this is unique combination of experience and in-house skills that leads Oxy to be very uniquely positioned to be a leader in the space of carbon management and sequestration. And that's why we're doing this. And towards that end, Oxy created a subsidiary called 1.5, who I'm representing today, with the goal of advancing projects in the field of carbon management, the one we are here to talk about today, which is Stratos. So where is this project located? It's around 20 miles southwest of Odessa. It's around 45 minutes to an hour drive from here. It's in a fairly remote location, so the closest house is more than 6 miles away from the location of this plant. If you can see the map that I'm sharing here, the purple box there is the Stratos location, and the 3 circles that you see are the CO2 injection wells, which would be associated with the sequestration project. So what is direct air capture? Just really quickly, it is a process which uses mechanical means to extract CO2 directly from the air or the atmosphere. And the end product of this process is a very pure stream of CO2. Now we can take the CO2 and inject it and safely and securely store it deep underground, or we can use it as a raw material to make low carbon products. Now there are a handful of direct air capture technologies out in the market today. The one that Oxy decided to go for, which is, we made that decision in 2019, is Carbon Engineering's direct air capture technology. Now Carbon Engineering is a Canadian company that was formed in 2009 with the purpose of creating a technology that could extract CO2 out from the atmosphere and help combat climate change. And they have, if you look at the picture, an R&D center and a pilot plant in Squamish, Canada, where over the last several years, they have been optimizing and maturing their direct air capture technology. Now, OXY decided to go with this technology because we believe it offers few key advantages over some of the other technologies that are currently there in the market. The first and foremost one is that it utilizes proven equipment and processes. By that I mean, the equipment that we use for this technology is actually currently in use across various industries. Now, Carbon Engineering did go and modify these pieces of equipment. So let me take an example here. If you look at that structure with the pink top there, that is our air contactor. That is where we pull in the air, and then it reacts with a chemical solution, and CO2 gets extracted from it. In principle, that piece of equipment is very similar to a cross-flow cooling tower that you would find in any industry. Some other examples would be pellet reactors, calciners, slakers. Again, pieces of equipment that you can find in different industries, such as the cement concrete industry. So what this lets us do is, it lets us leverage the supply chain that is existing for these equipment, and that gives us an economic advantage and also lets us scale up these technologies much faster. Another key benefit of this technology is that it's a closed loop process. So it makes a very efficient use of all the resources that go into this process. Now, let's talk about where we stand today with these Stratos. Now, the construction began back in Q4 2022. We had the groundbreaking ceremony in Q3 of last year. And as of today, we are on track to commence our commercial operations sometime mid-2025. In fact, we expect to start commissioning portions of the plant before the end of this year. So I would like you guys to please take note of the picture on the right bottom side. So that is a fairly recent image of our plant. I'll see if I can.
Excellent.
Yeah. So if I showed you an air contactor in the previous slide in the pilot plant, those two large structures over there are rows and rows of those air contactors. I mean, these are nearing completion. You see a lot of these vessels, dozens of these vessels, those are all the pellet reactors. Those are already in place. We've got the slakers in place. If you see that huge scaffolding in the middle, that is our calciner, which is currently under construction. It is around half completed. And once fully complete, it would be 260 feet tall, so twice the height of the scaffolding. And if you look carefully down here, you'll see a couple of cement trucks, so that can give you an idea of the scale of what size of equipment we're talking about. So we are very pleased with the progress regarding that this project is coming along in a timely manner. And obviously, none of this would be possible without the people that are involved in it. So our EPC contractor for this is Worley. And right now, as of today, Worley has more than 1,000 people working at that construction site.
Wow.
So Worley is truly dedicated for the development and upskilling of the workforce. So they have a very robust apprenticeship program under which they take apprentices and they go through on-site training. They get certified industry certifications, and they get skills that they can then use in the future projects that they work on. So we have 225 apprentices out there, and combined, they have completed more than 185,000 hours of training. So we are very happy about that, and on one of the more recent updates from Worley, they are actually right now working with the Odessa Community College, and they have identified more candidates for their program. Once the construction is completed, OXY anticipates, so that's where 1.5 will take over the project when it's completed. We anticipate that we would generate around we would require around 140 people for the operation and maintenance, the day-to-day operation and maintenance of this plant. So those will be full-time employees and job jobs that would be created. So that's the update on Stratos. Again, I just want to acknowledge all the teams, all the people that are involved in this. I mean, you saw the scale. It's a mega scale project, and people working tirelessly out there, whether that's Worthy teams, OPSI teams. It's been a great effort, and it's nice to see smiles like in some of these pictures. One of you, if any of you are a WWE fan, that's Booker T. I'm that age where I know him because he was pretty big when I was there.
Fantastic.
So let's move on to sequestration. I won't take a lot of time on this. Caroline was supposed to come and talk about that. Unfortunately, she had a root canal scheduled for tomorrow, and I talked to her this morning, and she was in a lot of pain. So I volunteered to cover her section for you, but she sends her apologies. Now, as far as the sequestration is concerned, so we talked about the carbon capture, we get the CO2. Now, what do we do with that CO2? So our sequestration project is located just 2 miles southwest of Stratos. So it will be on the lease. You'll have short distance transportation pipeline that will take that CO2 and take it over to our injection wells. And we plan to inject this CO2 in 3 wells. All these wells are greater than 5,000 feet deep. They're below a layer of impermeable rock. So this is also known sometimes in the oil and gas industry as tap rock or sealed rock. And we are thousands and thousands of feet below the deepest water sources. So last month, OPSI actually organized 2 community meetings here in Odessa to specifically engage with the community on this sequestration project. And we are very grateful for the response that we actually got for that event. We had people, the landowners, small business owners, these community members come, show interest, ask questions. I believe some members of ODC were there as well. So again, we really appreciate the support and the interest that the community is showing for this event. So during that one week meetings, we went into really in-depth discussion on this. So I won't go into too much details, but I'm here to answer any questions should you have any. Just want to give you an update on where we stand today. So the injection wells, based on EPA's Class 6 permit timeline, we anticipate them to be anticipate us to start drilling them sometime in November of this year. Now, a lot of attention, and rightfully so, goes to these injection wells. But there is a lot of work that goes before the first molecule of CO2 is even injected, right? And that's the area where we continue to make progress on a daily basis. So OPSI to date has already drilled 7 wells, which are a combination of what you would call strat wells or stratigraphy wells and monitoring wells in this area. Now strat wells, we drill those to collect all sorts of data, fluid data, pressure data, we get cores, we run logs, and we build these large models on which we then run simulations to be able to predict how the CO2 is going to behave once it's injected. So we have gathered seismic data. We have done airborne surveys of the area to make sure there are no orphan oil and gas wells that could create problems in the future. So all of that work is already been done. We are currently drilling monitoring wells. These are wells which monitor the zone that we are injecting in. They monitor the groundwater. They monitor zones above the zones we are injecting in. It's a double, triple layer of security to ensure that that CO2 that we are injecting, we know where it is, and it's not going anywhere where we don't intend it to.
CO2 that you're going to be injecting, is it solely going to come from the Stratus plant, or are you going to bring CO2 from other projects and other areas around to inject into these wells?
So right now, it is solely from, going to come from Stratos, but I'm sure if there are plants in the area which are interested in doing point source capture at the tail end, we could take their CO2. So these two, that's why they are separate projects. One is a sequestration project, one is Stratos. So yeah.
Is there a use for that CO2? I mean, we're injecting it in the ground, but is there some potential use for it?
So right now, I know there are a lot of technologies that are currently, I would say, in mid stages of maturity where the CO2 could be used. Oxy actually is an investor in a couple of companies that put the CO2. There's one called Sunvita that uses CO2 to create some products. Synthetic fuels potentially could be developed using CO2. But right now, we intend to inject and store the CO2 permanently.
Is that going to be at all used, wells in that depth are typically right around that Santa Rosa, or not Santa Rosa, San Andreas Formation that's already down there that we use for oil every day out here. Is that going to be, how's that going to communicate with that? How's that going to affect that particular geology in that
Good
area?
question. I mean, we would not be doing this project in this zone if there was oil and gas in that reservoir, because that's a requirement of the plastics permits, right?
Okay.
So we have done our studies. I mean, the zones we're injecting in, and you're correct, they are right in the area where you have the San Andreas, or deeper than that, maybe Clearfield reservoirs. But in this area, these zones are non-oil and gas bearing.
Okay.
As you go maybe a few miles out of the lease boundary, you do have some oil fields, which might be in those similar depths, but they are all outside our area of review, or the extent to which we know the CO2 is going to go out.
So we don't think it's going to go further than where you guys are trying to store it then?
Yeah, and that's where the simulation modeling, that's where the EPA permit, I mean, we have to show EPA all these detailed models that show the extent of where the CO2 is going. And that's why, if you look at this plot, you see the three injector wells. You would also see the observation wells and water producer wells, which also act as observation wells. All these wells are around the three injectors, so as the CO2 spreads out, we would know, how the extent of this plume. If it starts showing up there, at that point, we would be aware, okay, it's starting to go in the direction where it could go out of our lease boundary.
Okay.
So there is going to be a very robust monitoring plan. I mean, in addition to this, we'll be getting seismic data as well, in which you can track CO2 because of it creates density changes, right? At those depths.
Excellent.
Any other questions? Mr. Kumar, thank you so much for the update.
Well, thank you so much again for the time. I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity to come and speak in person. If anyone has any other questions, I mean, I might not be able to answer all, but I definitely can put you in touch with the people who will be best suited to answer those questions.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. We're very excited to see the project come to fruition.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Brings us to our next contractor's report, current media.
Good afternoon. I've got a short one this month. The big news is that the target industry analysis is complete. Received that this week, of course, right after the board reports were due, but I sent that to the advertising committee, and I also sent it to Tom and his team this morning. So I will have, we had talked, and we're going to get that circulated to the full board next week, so that you'll have a chance to take a look at that, digest it, ask any questions, and then we'll do a full report on that analysis. But in the meantime, there are several things that we've kind of started on. So I think I mentioned last month the manufacturing and the renewable manufacturing target industries. We're starting there. So our digital campaigns, we've gone back up to our normal levels starting in May, and we just started running those campaigns. We're kind of testing the waters right now, and then we'll probably make some adjustments in June. So I'll kind of let you know how those go, but we're not going to roll out all 6 target industries at once. So I wanted to mention that. The new campaign that I showed, we are also working on new ads for the manufacturing and the renewable manufacturing campaigns. So we have one that is running, and we're going to start looping more into those and kind of layering them in. In addition to that, we have started the publication ads that I think they're in your packet, and they were in last month as well. So all of those magazine ads are placed. We are starting to get editorial space from those two. We had one in business expansion in April. We have 2 coming up in trade and industry and business facilities. So they are allowing us to start adding editorial, which I was very happy about. So we'll be working on those, but I just got one of those today.
As we get those editorial placements, can you be sure and include that in our board packet?
Absolutely.
So that the board
Absolutely.
members can see it?
And also, I think I put the very short one that was in business expansion. I think there's a link in the board packet. If there's not, I'll start including links so that you can go straight to them and see the placement and all of those things. So absolutely.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So those are good things. We will have new ads. We are also updating our graphics on our social channels and things like that. You'll start seeing that new look that you saw last month on everything. So those will start working in. One thing we also did, Tom mentioned the Clean Power Conference that he was at last week. We did put a geofence around that just so that we can target back to those people. So once I have those renewable ads ready, then we'll go back to this. So I want to talk to him a little bit more about who was there and some of those things, but we will do a short campaign on those. And I wanted to mention also about some of the workforce follow-ups. We do have a mini-series, I think I mentioned that in the report, that we're kind of working on to start putting on the website, just some very simple articles that we can get out there and share on social. And the workforce resource page, we kind of revamped that, so that should be ready by the end of the month as well, and we'll start promoting that. And really outside of that, we are working on doing more locally to let people know what ODC does. So I think we've done a lot of that in social, but we're actually reaching out to some of the TV stations and some of the other things there to make sure that that we're trying to let people know what you guys are doing. So more of that to come, and we're going to try to do more after the board meetings as well. So I think those are the high points, unless I missed anything that you guys can think of.
The target industry survey, refresh my memory how large that whole.
So the document that I'm sending to the full board is 100 pages. So there's a lot. I'm thoroughly impressed with the work Golden Shovel did. I mean, they worked with us, and I really think that they dove deep into it. I'm still internalizing parts of it, so that's kind of why we're taking it in steps. The other thing that they included, there's an additional, I think, 10 pages on their marketing recommendations, some of which we're already doing, some of which the budget's quite high on, but I think there's ways we can do it. But I think it's nice to have an outsider's perspective too. So I'm looking through that, and we'll kind of bring those back to the board as well. We'll take some of their recommendations and layer in some of the things that we're not already doing as well. But yeah, it's about 100 pages long, so they've done a SWOT analysis
And
on each
deep dive.
industry. I'm sorry?
A deep dive.
A deep dive. And it's, I mean, I think it's good. As we're placing this kind of money, you know, on these digital campaigns, I think it's good for me to kind of have a roadmap, and they've definitely given me one. So
That's great.
We'll just keep getting deeper into that as we dive into it more and learn more about it.
Wonderful. Any other questions for
I
Kristen?
have a question on shares on some of these. They don't have very many shares on these profiles. And I know from experience, I mean, you see something, you want to share it with all your friends, so you get one good project or one good opportunity, you know, that one spreads like wildfire. So I wonder what we can do to get something on there that will
Get a little more engagement.
will spread, yeah.
I do think that we have a few things going in our favor. We can even look, I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll put the ones that have the most engagement on there, so you're seeing the ones that are up there.
Yeah.
Some are better than others. The people who do engage well, but there's some that we could absolutely do.
Yeah, 'cause some of them I saw 0 shares,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
they weren't excited about it, not
Right.
to share it,
Right.
so.
And I think we kind of have a balance right now of what we're putting out there organically versus our ads that are running too. And we're definitely getting more traction on our programmatic digital placement right now than we are on anything, you know, else that we're doing in terms of the engagement. But I do think that that's something we can work on social and try to come up with some other things that we can get people to engage.
I don't know what it'd be, I don't have an idea, but
Yeah.
I just know one person really falls in love with it, you have a lot
I
of
think
shares.
some of, honestly, the things that do best are the ones that have, you know, somebody's name or face, or it's localized.
Mhm.
And I think we need to do more of that. You know, we're sharing a lot of information, but we're not sharing a lot of people who are involved.
Right.
And maybe that's something that would help too. So
Yeah.
we'll work on that. And I had not even mentioned, Lindsay's doing a great job on her side on the posting and everything else on the social internally. And I think if we get some of these local news stories going, I think that that's something that they'll share more, especially if we can get some interviews and things like that. So we'll
I
definitely
think
keep
that's
that
the
in mind.
right track, somebody sees somebody they know, they chase it out and share it, so.
Absolutely. So.
Thank you.
Wonderful. Any other questions? Awesome. Thank you, Christy. Appreciate it. All right. That brings us to the Black Chamber of Commerce and their information is in the packet. And I don't see Tyler here from UTPB, but I did see the information in our packet. Any discussion? Either one of those? Okay. The illustrious James Beecham with Motran.
If illustrious is having your picture up on the post office wall, I got it covered, so there you go. We brought a little extra packet in for you today, doing our little quarterly update for you. And just wanted to let you know that today was the first day of the conversion of the frontage roads on I-20. Hopefully you weren't out there, so you can deal with that. But that's the portion from 1788 over the JBS Parkway, and that's the groundbreaking they had on Monday. Go ahead and kick off the additional interior roads both directions on I-20. I anticipate that in this UTC revision, we'll probably pick up some additional funding to move that on back over. You've got the completion of 1250 on the Midland side. You're about completed with Cotton Flat and Garfield. And then 349 is already up to par on that one, so that will allow them to go ahead and extend that conversion of the frontage roads, because we want that to be fast. You don't want to try to teach people you're going to drive two-way in some areas and one-way in some others, because that's a disaster waiting to happen. But I think most of that will move pretty quickly and kind of go from there. But that's a big deal for us today as we look at that. Primarily what I wanted to update you on a little bit, we just had our I-27 implementation plan last week and went through that. And kind of to give you the update for that, because that impacts both I-27 and I-14. Actually, what they provided, despite some comments I'm pretty good with, one of those projects at 158 corridor is number 4 on the statewide list for the prioritization. The 349 segment's a little bit further out of the map ranking. But we're going to start the PS&E on both of those projects this fall. And what that really does is bumps both of those projects ahead of everybody else. The fact that you'll have your preliminary schematics, your engineering, and your environmental completed. And that allows us to acquire a right-of-way, which is the big part of that, to moving it along. So again, where we're at in that, all those projects have come in actually on the right-of-way and utility adjustments below some previous estimates, so that's kind of a good news there. But again, kind of in that ensuing interstate conglomeration here for that transportation hub, this is a big part of it. The one last component to that, and we've had some discussions in our board on this, is the 385 segment going south of Odessa to I-10. That was designated in the I-14 designation, but there wasn't actually a number put to it. It was designated as future interstate to be named later. And really the concept at that time is that ultimately you'd make that 414 or something like that as the connector loop there. But because interstates are largely about marketing, and I will tell you, Christy, we're running the Midland Odessa Transportation Hub video right now. That thing's gone nuts as far as the views on that. We talked about it a little bit at our board meeting about, instead of doing a 214 or a 414 or whatever like that, for marketing purposes, for Tom and all the others, why not just go ahead and stick a new interstate number on it? And that gives you that much more marketing bang for your buck there. So that's kind of the direction that we're going there. We pulled all the available interstate numbers. I-13 is available. There's some concerns about that. But there's a few others out there too. And so you generally want a low number. So we're kind of going forward on that process. There's a lot of folks involved there. But I just kind of wanted to throw that out to you because part of what you paid us for over the years and engaged us for is to improve infrastructure, but also the marketing of this area, the transportation resources here. And so I think that's an important part of that. The final thing that I wanted to share with you today is probably kind of the bad news, so we save that for last. Last week, the EPA was out here to talk about their proposed designation of the non-attainment area for ozone purposes. And so we had done testing before, and one of the things that came up in this was to look at kind of what those costs would be. There's a lot of costs that applies all across the board if you fall into a non-payment area. It's pretty damn dire, for lack of a better word. But what we did was just took two simple areas that we could put these numbers together with real quick, and we'll probably do some others over time. But first of all, in cost to drivers, it's about $11.7 million a year here at Midland and Odessa, from the fact that you would now have to have an air quality emissions test on your vehicle, as well as the fees that you pay in regard to that, and for purposes of repairs. We used a number that was based on repairs in the Austin area since they hit that status. It was about 5.24% of inspected cars have to be repaired. Somehow I have the feeling our number may be a little bit higher out there.
Yeah, you think?
Their average repair cost was also about $232, and that's kind of an amalgamation as well, because what we find is there's a lot of people that have to have their catalytic converters replaced, and that's generally a $1,200 or $1,300 repair. That was excluded from this because technically under federal law today, you should already have a working catalytic converter, so. But people don't catch that unless you get to this air attainment testing, so. But again, 11.7 million annually for drivers this year in Midland and Odessa. And then when we looked at the construction cost for roadway construction projects here, just on system, not including city or county projects. All of that equipment has to be upgraded to lower those emissions. That impact came to somewhere between 573.6 million to 716.8 million over the next decade. So it's a huge cost, and the reason I want to point that out, it's important to us, but it really applies to everything that anybody else would do here as well, any type of large construction. So that's a continuing effort.
What do we need to do to try to head that off, James?
Well, there's the possibility that you could go do additional testing that more confirms with their standards on that. I don't know that anybody really wants to do that, because that's always kind of a hot shot. Our numbers were really low. But that's one thing. Or the other point to it is this designation is really kind of, has never occurred before. They're using 3 monitors in New Mexico, and this would be a large multi-county type of designation. At some point, I think it's one of those, I mean, I hate to say what I'm about to say, this is one of those times where we do need to see the federal government. It really has been going outside the bounds in a way that is, you know, part of the thing with the testing, we could do that. It would be expensive to do that more standardized testing, which is a 24-hour test. But really, at the end of the day, I think part of the reluctance of that isn't so much that we're going to find something. Our levels are lower out here. If you look at where their testing sites are, one of them's at Carlsbad Caverns, one of them is up around a bunch of dairy farms. Yeah, you're going to get a higher ozone reading level there because of some of those components. The real premise of this has been to blame the oil and gas industry for those emissions that are going up, mixing there, and in accumulation with sunlight, supposedly causing that. And so I don't think there's really any rhyme or reason to it, Jeff, if that makes sense. I think they're really wanted just to target.
My suspicion is this is largely political, not practical.
I think so.
So,
I'm sorry.
so excuse me. So having said that, what do we need to be doing politically, public relations wise, whatever, to help head this off?
Well, this is a little bit tricky for me to answer this question because there's a real good answer to it. But I have some biases here, and I think a lot
Change
of
of
it has to do with
administration.
this upcoming election. So, I mean, honestly, it is what it is there. And I think in the current administration, there are always going to be huge targets on the oil and gas industry, and that's just all there is to it, so.
So you're saying that they've designated us that way?
No.
Not
they
yet.
have not.
Not yet.
And this has been going on for a while. I think we did the testing back in 2022, so that's been 2 years ago. It's just been an ongoing thing. And airtainment or designations, there's 6 different things they can look at. We've been through 4 things on that list. I think we're on the 5th now. If this goes away, I'm sure they'll just go to the 6th thing on the list. So it's just kind of a never-ending process for about the last 20 years. I think at this point, the main thing we need to do is be aware and kind of engaged in the process. So if we get a little further along, we can make some better decisions. But I think there's several groups.
Yeah, I
The
think.
good news is the EPA did come out here for that meeting, and they went and toured. And I think probably we need to get a presentation from Oxy and send that to them too, and look, hey,
Yes.
look what we're doing out here, on those things. That would probably be a really good thing.
It's a really good idea. I think we need to do that.
Yeah, I just think it seems to me, as I've watched this play out over the last few years, you know, that it's not one of those things we can take for granted and say, that's never gonna happen. We have to assume that they're gonna keep pressing it. And so we've gotta have a good game plan of pressing back.
Absolutely. That, just on the construction numbers, it would cut our construction budget here for roads and highways in half, really, pretty much. We'll look at that over the next 10 years, so. Well, we appreciate it, and again, sorry.
I had one question.
Oh, yes, sir.
When you're talking about the cost of updating to meet EPA on construction and the dollar amount you gave, how big an area was that? Was it a multi-county or the whole state? It seemed modest for the whole state.
Well, it was just Midland and Ector County.
It's a lot of money for 2 counties.
Yeah. Well over $500 million, half to $750 million.
So,
Yeah.
16 million.
We could look at that as we go through that, if they ever give any guidance on what counties they're looking at specifically, we can update that, but at the time, they've never given any good.
A lot of newer machines are made to standards anyway, but it mean a lot of updating, a lot of sales. And I saw some of the I-14 signs up on 190 this weekend. US 190
Oh, okay.
has some I-14 signs, and so they really stood out in the middle of nowhere.
Well, I've got some, and if I don't get caught doing it, maybe we can get a few more out.
One other quick question on a local interest. I mean, the overpasses here that got pushed back some, what's the status of those? The other 3 on 338 and the one on the south side?
Actually, I think we're kind of back up to par at this point. The main one that had gotten pushed off was the one that we got the earmark funds for last year. And so it was gonna be a 2-year delay, and so that's cut down to a 1-year delay. And then there are 2 other projects that y'all have out there that you've leveraged, and I hope I don't screw this up. I think one of them is I-20 and,
Parkway?
Or is it?
Yeah, I think so.
Or is it Padre? No, I just signed one for TxDOT. I've signed two in the last week for TxDOT.
Yeah, and then the other one, that really stood out is, Audrey and BI-20.
Yeah.
Those projects are all ahead of schedule on the planning and development stage. And I think last time they were probably about a year ahead. And some of those projects are quite a bit further out in the planning deal, but I think, the good thing about it, and it's part of the reason that the leveraging thing was so important, Larry. So right now, TxDOT's going through that process where they're gonna give out free cookies to people, additional dollars for projects. But you have to have projects ready to go to get the money. It has to be pretty short term. And so those projects that you leveraged are now bringing in additional state dollars for construction above and beyond what we would have gotten when the program came out. And that's what's really made this work. If you sped the projects up, but you also increased your funding. And so I think, like I said on those, I think all of those are actually ahead of schedule.
Thank you very much.
Well, thank you.
I just was looking at, one of the ones I signed was the $2 million we did for 385 and 338. And the second one was West Loop 338 and 8th Street
Okay,
was $2 million.
okay.
So those were the,
38A.
uh-huh.
I know there's one from there.
Yeah, those are the 2.
And my guess is you'll
Yeah,
probably.
West
see
Loop
those
338 and 8th Street. Those are the 2 that we signed to. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, the always informative Miss Kaylee Banda, come on down.
These to you all before I jump in.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you so much.
Okay. So in front of you, you have the financials for February. The March ones are done, I just haven't had a chance to review them yet, so next month I'll have March and April to review. So, starting on the front page here. There we go. Starting on the front page here, as of the end of February, we have total assets of $86,436,800. Down below, I did update these short and long-term commitments. So, as we had previously discussed, there were some of the commitments that were not listed on here. Now, a lot of the ones that y'all have approved recently still aren't on here because these are February financials. I did include a list, which is later on in the packet, of everything that's been committed to date, so we can talk about that here in a minute. But I did update the short-term commitments on here based on a couple things. I went and looked at all of the last payments that we paid out for these agreements, and if it was about a year or so ago, then I went ahead and put it on the short-term commitments just because we're probably going to be paying one out soon. And then secondly, I looked at the compliance monitoring status for these and if these were in the works or in communications, and I thought that we would pay one out within the next year, then I included that up in short-term as well. So moving on to the profit and loss page. Revenues this month of February, $1,747,567. Total revenues to date, $7,717,497. Of course, most of that being the sales tax, but the money market and the investments are providing some of that interest income as well, some healthy income. Down in the expenditures, you'll see it was a cheap month. Nothing to be expended this month. You'll probably won't see too many of those, but that is a good thing. So we'll move on to, skip the next couple pages. So don't.
Kaylee?
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry.
Sure.
But last month, I think I asked about why the Odessa Black Chamber of Commerce expenses show up in promotional. Did you have a chance to research that to see?
I have not, no, but I will do that, yes. Okay, so flip to the page to the changes in reserves. So this one will show a month-end change for Apergy, Champion X. The initial payment request from them did come in February, but we didn't print the check until March. So I'll make sure that gets moved out and we put it in the March reserve fund balance change instead of February. But again, these short-term and long-term commitments are updated based on those that were on the front page, so those do match. If there's no date in the payments began column, then we haven't paid that first initial payment out, as you can probably deduce, but I did want to point that out. That's why there's a lot of blanks on there. We just haven't had either the compliance hasn't been done or the project is still in the works, so we haven't paid anything out. That next page is the investment summary, but I did go ahead and if you look at the next page, did a comparison for beginning of month to end of month like David requested. Yes, it is much easier to read and comprehend, I think. So beginning of the month, we had a total in the local government investment pools of $63,068,627. And at the end of the month, we had $63,333,999. $338,010. So healthy jump there. In the money market, there was a significant jump in that from the beginning of the month, which is $6,938,531. We had a couple of municipal securities mature, like 3 municipal securities. So when those mature, they go back into the Frost money market. So that's why our end of month balance is significantly higher at $9,703,964. So I know we have talked about investing some of that money, but also the money market has a healthy rate. So if there's no huge hurry to invest anything, we don't have to, but there are always options in different securities that I get updates on weekly from our from Oppenheimer, which is who we use for that service. So if there is ever any interest in investing some of that, we can. But I know everyone is not so convinced anymore that interest rates are going to be coming down, so I guess there's no real hurry if y'all aren't in any hurry. But just let me know if that sentiment changes and y'all want to look at something.
The CD that matured on April 30th, did it go to Frost Money Market as well?
No. So I called the West Texas National last week and caught his voicemail, and I haven't heard back. So it's at West Texas National, but I don't know if that CD auto renews or if it's just in a high yield savings over there.
Well, did the West Texas National mature in September of 23, and then the First Bank and Trust?
I'm sorry, yes.
April of 24?
First Bank and Trust, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Terry over there is who we use for that.
So the West Texas National Bank, did it mature in September of 23?
Yes, it did. So that should say 24.
24, okay, it
Yes,
was renewed?
it was renewed, yes.
Okay, thank you.
And I did already get a letter of, I forget what they call it, but just notifying me that it's coming up for maturity in September. So I did get that from them already.
And we'll be moving that, I'm assuming, if we can't get a much better rate than the
2%.
Yeah, if that's what y'all would like to do, then yes, we can do that for sure. So down in the municipal securities, you'll see from beginning of month to end of month, those 3 that matured and are now reflected in the Frost Money Market account. So our total investments at the beginning of the month were, as of, let me see, I'm going to read the fair value here, $79,978,577 in fair value at the end of the month. $331,360. So the following page is that list of commitments that I mentioned earlier. So this is everything that, as of, the last meeting, has been committed. And I guess I should say the last council meeting, because they're not officially committed until they've been committed by, city council. So the total commitments that you all have outstanding, and these range from, most of them are 5-year agreements, but there are a couple on here, for example, like Nacero, that's a 10-year agreement. So $44,913,526 is what is committed to be paid. Of course, that's based on the compliance and all of those other things in the agreements. But that is our maximum liability that we have at this moment in time. So I wanted y'all to know that figure so you can make the appropriate decisions based off of that. And then the next page is just the sales tax to date as of May that has been collected. So this month, you received $1,314,716.25. To date this year, you've received $9,538,293.14, which is just 0.5% shy of the year-to-date amount last year. So we're pretty on par, even with what was collected last year. And then that second page is just historical data for your pleasure viewing if you'd like to read it. So, do you have any questions?
We've been seeing a little up and down in our.
Yes.
Kind of see it
I have noticed that, so it's reassuring to see that we're just still on level after all the ups and downs.
So that amount that's due from general fund, when will it move over?
So we've already moved it over. We just moved it over after February, so we have to reflect it. Yes.
Well, I got you. This
Yes.
is February financials. Thank you.
Yes, yes. We moved it over in March, I believe, so it should be cleared.
Show next month.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Any other-
Oh, and I will mention that next month, we'll start looking at the budget calendar. We'll approve the budget calendar next month, and we'll also approve the letter to be sent out to the contractors for their proposal submissions. And then once y'all approve that letter, the city, of course, will send them out to current contractors. And then last year, you all opted to have it posted online as well. So if you want to do that again, we can. So we'll do that next month, and then budget discussions won't happen until maybe late July or August. So that's where we are on that.
Thank you.
Okay.
Questions? Wonderful. Thank you, Kaylee. All right. Just want to remind everybody, this is an open meeting. Therefore, any member of the public can address the ODC board regarding any of the agenda items that are listed before or during the consideration of any item. So if you'd like to be recognized, just signal me. We will try to do that. That brings us to item number 5, which is to discuss and consider appointments to the ODC Compliance Committee. I'm sorry?
Are we doing public comment now?
Just on agenda items.
Oh, just one.
So, I know that we received from Tracy earlier a few of the applications. I know of 2, I think, that were missing, and I know some of these just came in today. It would be my suggestion that we kind of table this one to give everybody some time, first of all, for some of the other applications to come in, and then that will also allow us to get all those applications into the packet for the next meeting for time to review and get those on. And then we have several. I was going to ask that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 that say they're eligible for reappointment. Do we know, are all of these willing to be reappointed? Are they glutton for more punishment? Yes. I see Kathy's nodding. Yes. Okay.
Could we go ahead and take action on reappointing them and then table the applications that we've received?
It's up to you guys.
I mean, I guess I would move for reappointment of Chris Walker, Betsy Triplett, Hurt, Judy Hayes, Brian Green, and Eric Augustin.
Do we have any idea how long some of these people have served on compliance? I mean, do we have term limits or?
Yeah.
Same as y'all's are.
So
2 terms.
what is that?
What is it?
3 2-year terms?
3 2-year terms, so 6 years.
So on Betsy Triplett Hurt's application, she said that she's on 6 years. That she's done 6 years in the actual application that we've got here. So is she eligible?
She's only been on, she did 6 years on the board, as a board
Okay.
member. but
Maybe that's what-
she's
okay.
just, this is 2 years on
Okay.
As it says eligible, they haven't reached the 6-year limit.
Okay.
So I
Second.
made that
Second.
motion to.
Okay, I have a motion to go ahead and reappoint Chris Walker, Betsy Triplett Hurt, Judy Hayes, Brian Green, and Eric Augustin. Have a second from Dr. Kirk. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries.
Okay, so question, I see 4, there's 4 who are not, they're either not eligible or they don't have an interest or whatever, on this list. Do we know how many total spots we have? Because,
That are now available.
yeah, because I'm unsure as to how many, the maximum we have on the compliance committee.
We have three people that have resigned, Tim, Kaylee, and Blake Bath.
Right.
And then we have 2 members that are on there that have not been to a meeting in probably maybe 1 meeting. That's all they've ever attended, which was the
Brian Green.
No.
Rodriguez?
Yes, and man, the last name man also.
There's four.
I don't see them.
I only see David Rodriguez on here is unable to attend meetings.
Okay, maybe that's the only one. Maybe I was thinking something else.
But the question is, because I just don't remember, is there a maximum number of members of the compliance committee or a target, a minimum and a maximum, or, because I think that we ought
I
to,
think
we ought
there
to
is
know.
a max, but I don't remember.
Yeah,
what
we
it
ought to
is.
know what that is next time whenever we're considering these applicants.
Yeah, that would be great.
Because,
I don't either. It
Can-
is in the bylaws, I will check that.
Can you find out and then email that out and let us know? That way, as we're looking at the applications, we know how many we still have left to fill.
yeah,
Yeah, good point, David. Okay. So, do we need to take any other action as far as, I mean, we kind of didn't table it because we took a
Yeah, you
vote.
did, so that's fine. That should do.
So I think we're good, aren't we?
I think you are.
Yep.
All right, and then what we'll do is we'll just make sure we have another agenda item next meeting
Yeah.
for the other applications.
Spots actually available.
Right, for
Yeah.
happening with that.
and I would hope the agenda, or the packet should include all the applications that we have to consider.
Right.
And then we just need to understand how many spots are open.
Okay. Sounds great. Any other discussion? All right, moving right along. That takes us to item 6. Discuss and consider the potential default by Nacero of Economic Development Agreement and the process to address and remedy, including directing the ODC attorney to provide a 30-day notice of default. I'll open it up for discussion.
I looked at the agreement, and all we have to do is give them 30 days notice that we want to terminate it. And I recommend we terminate it because I don't think we ought to have our
18 million.
funds reserved for longer than five
Yeah.
years and maybe up to 10 years.
So when they
So,
were here, that was the direction that they said it would be at least.
Yeah.
So, and I think he was very much in agreement with that also.
I don't think we need to go through the default process because then we have to notify them of the default
Yeah.
and they have a period of time to cure. If we can just terminate the agreement on 30 days' notice, I think that's
Yeah.
the best way to do.
I would make a motion to do that.
Because I understand, Dan, from what we saw in some of the stuff we received, you know, I'm a little frustrated over this one, just in general. You know, we've got almost $2 million of Odessa taxpayer money that has been expended for something that we have absolutely totally nothing to show for it. And, you know, I went back and reviewed the video of the meeting where that grant was approved by this board. And, you know, and it just made me more angry as I watched it because, you know, it was very clear that they had not, you know, this board did two things, I think, which I still don't understand really the thinking and logic of it. You know, the first thing was we had, you know, the contract specified year one expenses, but yet we let them go back a number of years before our contract was even written. And that was the bulk of the expenses that they turned in. I don't understand what the thinking was, but I watched our former finance director and some of the members of this board kind of get twisted into not trying to make the case that should have been allowed. I don't understand that at all. I mean, I'm just going to be blunt. You know, then you get to the point of, you know, I almost feel like we were kind of defrauded by Nacero, to put it bluntly. You know, we kept getting promised, oh, we got the groundbreaking scheduled. Oh, you know, I went back and looked at newspaper reports and things like that. And there were a number of times where we were promised, oh, the groundbreaking is imminent. Matter of fact, we've even got the governor. We're just waiting for his calendar to clear to come for the groundbreaking and all this. And you know, and in hindsight, you look at that, and it certainly seems to me like, you know, they were kind of just stringing us along, is the way it certainly feels to me. They were just stringing us along. They were no closer to financing than they ever were. They were no, you know, their story kept changing. They kept, you know, we started with Bechtel, then we're not going to do that, and then we're going to do this, and then you know, but they kept their story evolving until we got to the point of the $2 million check, and then their story started to fall apart. And I just, I just hate the fact that we've got $2 million of taxpayer money that was spent with nothing to show for it.
Let me ask this, and I'll ask you, Dan. Is there anything in the contract, or even based on all of this, that would give us a clawback, an ability to do that?
I don't believe there is.
Hal told us if we asked for it, he'd give it back.
Well, and I'm going to piggyback on that, because Hal even told us, I don't know if you remember that night, David, at the country club. He said, if when this deal falls apart, it is our intention to return that money. Do you remember him saying that?
He said it in the last meeting, too.
I mean, I think we need to ask for it.
Absolutely appropriate to ask them for the money back.
I don't think there's a problem with asking them for it. But Jeff, just hopefully to answer some of your questions and concerns and some of the reasons that this body voted the way it did. In your review, did you review the Weaver audit? Because we relied on the Weaver audit. We were informed that not making the payment in accordance with the contract would put us in default on that contract and potentially open the ODC in the city of Odessa to lawsuit.
I don't believe that's an accurate reflection, Melanie. I mean, I did look at the Weaver audit, and we get into this whole discussion of what is year one of the contract. Well, you know as well as I know that contracts have effective dates, and the effective date of that contract, 12 months forward, that would have been year one. But yet we let them go back, whether it was us or Weaver or a combination of the two. This board let them go back many years in the past and drag forward all of these expenses, which we don't even know. We have no way of understanding if those expenses, even if we should have allowed to do that, which we shouldn't have, in my opinion, but were they tied to this project? Because they'd been in Arizona, giving them a line. They'd been in Pennsylvania, giving them a line. Now apparently we got them down the Gulf Coast, giving them a line. I mean, I don't understand how we got to the idea that year one was really year one minus 4.
Okay, I don't understand why we're having this discussion. Subsequent to that, we determined that going forward in our agreements, we would specify those beginning dates and ending dates with regard to expenses. We've already resolved this issue. You're in disagreement with what occurred. We're not, and there's nothing to be served by it.
Okay, I
want to reinforce again.
Let's just move forward then. My question is, can we ask?
Can he finish what he's saying?
Yeah, my motion is to terminate the agreement. We ought to do that. And then subsequent to that, we ought to ask for the money back.
You're gonna put it in the form of a
Sure.
motion?
Okay,
Second?
have a motion and a second. Any more discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Thank you. Item number 7, removed from the table to discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the ODC to enter into an economic development agreement with UTPB as part of a collaboration with Permian Strategic Partners and the Midland Development Corporation to develop an SAS analytics workforce model that will support plans to close the workforce gaps and to provide support for economic development. I've got EDC staff. I think that's a great idea. Come on down, Dr. Woodley.
To trip on
No,
me.
please don't fall.
Thank you, friends. Thank you so much. You know, I appreciated the opportunity a month ago to talk about the project, and we had an opportunity to present to the Midland Development Corporation.
You're gonna remove it from the table, you gotta make a motion.
I'll make the motion.
Thank you.
I'll make the motion to remove it from the table.
I have a motion, have a second from Mr. Harry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Awesome. Items removed. Dr. Woodley.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you for the clarification.
And so, you know, we had the opportunity to present to our colleagues at Midland Development Corporation, and all signs are positive there. They're expected to take up a vote, I think on June the 6th, June the 3rd or the 4th. So it will be up for a vote there. We did a presentation to them similar to the one that we did for you. Let me just reiterate very quickly the main objectives of the project and the amount. And then we have Josh available to us from SAS Analytics, from Carrie, to do another walkthrough of that, if that would be helpful to you. So, the objectives of the meeting, of course, is to develop an analytics project and a platform that will allow us to strategically plan and implement initiatives that will close the workforce gaps. What are the workforce gaps over the coming years? And to create this model that will allow UTPB to serve as this Bureau of Workforce Statistics that can serve all of the decision makers that have to put plans in place to close the workforce gaps. What are the gaps? How many? For how long? And then to take those big data analytic systems in that platform in year 2 and to connect it to all of the higher ed and the K-12 data so that we understand what students and potential students are in the pipeline, what degree projections do we have in all of these areas, what's the gap, how do we track it, how do we make sure that we're making progress over time. We also plan to, in this project, connect it to career data later on in the project to understand when our graduates graduate, what jobs do they take? Do they stay here? How long do they stay? What are their salaries? And how does that close over time? We are excited about being a conduit at UTPB in this project for all of the decision makers to help them in their planning and to do joint planning to close the workforce gaps. The request before you is a 2-year project that would allow for an investment of $398,279 in year 1, $420,781 in year 2, and this project is shared between Odessa Development Corporation, if approved, Midland Development Corporation, and also Permian Strategic Partnership. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and if you'd like, we can kick the tires again of the prototype.
Just one question. So tell me again, that first year amount from ODC would be $398.
$398,279.
And then year 2 would be $227,381.
$420.
Oh, sorry, I can't read my own handwriting.
$781.
I did just have one question.
Sure.
When we look at the workforce gap, so I'm assuming, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm assuming that this will track both kind of degree program trainings and certifications and
all of it,
all of
everything, including non-skilled labor, skilled labor. The model has the ability to track it by the education required for all of the jobs. So it would allow us to track every job. And so then the strategic planning comes in for UTPB, because I understand, through the economic analysis that is already baked in and will be baked in every year and updated, that we need, about 38,000 more baccalaureate graduates over the next 20 years. Well, we need almost 200, there would be 200 jobs available. So obviously the smallest, part really is the baccalaureate, but that's my role, and we're not producing enough right now to meet that goal, but we're really working strategically on plans to understand what are the most important majors. And some of them I don't now have. I mean, for example, we are implementing this fall civil engineering. There's a huge shortage of civil engineering graduates out here. So we know anecdotally that we have a large gap in civil engineering, but what I want to know is how many, right? And over what period of time? More importantly, I want to know over the next, number of years, am I making progress? Am I closing the gap? What else can we do? Who can we collaborate with? For example, on civil engineering or accounting or teachers or, nurses, whatever the case may be. And in conjunction with that, Midland College and Odessa College and Texas Tech Health Science Center, they will be able to understand what their role is in closing the gap. They have a different mission than we do and different set of programs and graduates. And so the opportunity to pull all of these data sets into one place where the university has the responsibility to provide those dashboards and those data to anyone who needs it, to be able to plan. That's really the magic, I think, that comes from this. And then to track the progress over time with workforce development agencies such as yourself and also the Workforce Commission and others. Many opportunities, I think, to get very sophisticated about our progress here. And I do think that I really am not aware of another region that's doing anything like this. I think we have a moment in time where we have the cooperation between, two cities in every way. You've got the development corporations, you've got, all of the higher education entities who are really pulling together the PSP and their investment in this. They're investing in this project, but their bigger investments are in programmatic investments. I mean, I've received almost $20 million from them to produce more nurses and more health, care workers and, pre-med that will feed into Texas Tech Health Science Center. So those are where we started, of course, in the investments. But what this model will do is help us to identify very clearly, what the future gaps are so that we can go out and seek philanthropy like PSP and the companies and others who are interested in helping UTBB and Midland College and Odessa College to be able to get the support, the scholarships, the faculty lines, or whatever you need to ramp up, the production in those areas. And so, I think this will be a national model, and I think, we'll find an amazing impact out of this in 1 year, 2 years for sure.
So what is that time frame? From the time that you've got your funding set,
Yeah.
if they start gathering information, at
Yeah.
what point will you be able to start extracting information?
Well, the models, the prototypes of the models are partially set because we've been working on the concept and the idea for 4 years. So we're not starting from scratch here. What we have to be able to do once we get the funding is to build the data architecture, to pull in the data, to update it with the new data that we'll have to purchase, to pull in here. And then to get the advisory group together, and I'm using that term loosely, we want to get the power users who will come out of this to help us with the data architecture so that we understand from, PSP's perspective, what are your questions? Let's build it so we can answer your questions. ODC and NBC, what are your questions? What do you need to know to help with your economic development? I've got questions that I need to know. Our friends at Midland College and Odessa College, they'll have a different set of questions. And so we'll very quickly, once the funding is in place, get these advisors and decision makers together to make sure that this first phase, and we expect to expand this every year, to be able to answer more questions. What is needed to make sure that we set up the architecture in a way that we can answer the questions and automate the infusion of updated data every single year so that then we can continue to create these customized dashboards for the different entities that can use these data to, fill the workforce gap.
Thank you.
Has MDC approved this?
No, I presented to them about 2 weeks ago. It is on their board for approval early June.
Okay, do you anticipate?
The signs are positive.
Okay.
I mean, I
Because
don't want to be
think-
presumptuous, but I think the signs are very
I
positive.
think the collaboration
Yeah.
with PSP and MDC
amazing.
and ODC is really, really, as you said, I think that's one of the main pieces in this puzzle that I'm
Sure.
really happy about. In the agreement, I think, I talked about this the last time we looked at this, I think there's a disconnect between, in section 4 of UTPB covenants, it talks about expenditures by UTPB in a minimum amount of X number of dollars. I think it should say in a maximum amount because the commitment by ODC is up to a maximum amount of such and such.
Yeah.
Those need to be matched up. So,
Yeah, the attorneys worked on it. I think I think what we want to make sure, and I think the reason why, I don't know the minimum or maximum language, but we anticipate that it will take, 946 in year one.
Right.
But if we don't expend it, then of course you won't disperse it.
And that's
Yeah.
actually my
Yeah.
point, is that if you spend more than these dollars, we've got a maximum.
Yeah, you're
coverage.
only committing to
So
the
it's
amounts.
So it's immaterial, but if you spend less, then you will invoice us for less.
That's correct.
So
Yeah,
that's why those need to match
yeah,
up.
I would agree.
I would agree with that as well.
And with
With that change.
With that, I would make a motion to approve this.
Yeah, I would like I would like you to ask you guys to be very, very proactive as we start into this.
Yeah.
To be feeding us back the information.
I would love to do that. It would be my pleasure.
On a regular basis so that we know where we're falling short
Oh, sure.
So that we can, again, try to look to develop plans and programs around that may be outside of the scope of UTV or OC or something.
Yeah.
We've talked a lot, I know, on Ed Committee at times about, workforce recruitment.
Right.
And so we really need to have that data so that we, if we're finding that we're way short of X, we can maybe help go out into the country and find X.
Exactly. Well, absolutely. And I think, our anticipation is that we can work with, your representative, Tom Menske, or you, or whoever you like, to figure out what are the dashboards that you'd like to have at your fingertips, right? And so we can update those dashboards as we get the project going, and it can be at your fingertips. And of course, we will be available at any time to come and give you a briefing of how things are going.
Excellent.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, I have a motion and a second, but Mr. Robinson, do you have a question or comment?
I have my hard time wrapping my head around taking out of one taxpayer's pocket entity and giving, I know UTP is funded through, University of Texas is funded through tuition and grants and their endowment, but when we're here, we don't have a direct tax, but the system has a $6 million a day annuity or endowment coming in greater than any probably in the
You're talking about the UT system?
The system.
Well, I wish I had part of that, but it's not.
I know.
It's not UTPB money.
That's why I'm saying that you
Yeah.
come to us for a little bit, and this is coming out of taxpayers' pockets, and yet our area, local area here, University Lands, is what supports the whole system.
Sure.
And we don't look around, we see you have a nice campus, you've done a good job, I think it's good for the community, but I don't see much else for the $6 million a day. So I don't think I could bring myself to go with this.
Well, I think what I would say, and certainly I appreciate your your thoughts. I think what I would say is this project right here is an economic development project. The university really is a contractor to you to do something that you need to fill your own workforce gaps. So it's not you're not funding the educational enterprise of UTPB. You're not funding, scholarships for our students. What you're funding is work that you need to be able to close the workforce gaps, which is the mission, part of the mission of ODC. So you could contract with the university, or you could contract with, some other entity to provide that service. This is, unique to workforce. And so in that sense, I would, respectfully request that you would reconsider, because I really think that this project goes beyond the overall educational enterprise of UTPB. It is a service that really is focused on workforce.
Well, I think software development is enterprise that can be worked well through free enterprise. An entrepreneur look at your system and buy it and put it out there and make money off of it. We could all utilize it. So I think it might be something for somebody else.
Yeah. Yes, again, great respect for your question. The other point I would make is, SAS Analytics has a different price point for a nonprofit educational entity to do this than they would for a financial institution or insurance. So you absolutely get a significantly better deal in this than outsourcing it out to some other entity that would have to get full price for a SaaS model. Just another point. So, thank you.
So currently I have a motion from Mr. Boutin. I have a second from Dr. Kirk. Any more discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right. That's going to bring us to a few items that Mr. Mansky referenced earlier, which would be item number 8, which is discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the ODC to enter into an economic development agreement with Rental King LLC for the development of a new location in Odessa. And again, I believe he said that those resolutions haven't been completed by the legal team yet, and so he's asking that we table that to the next meeting. I will entertain a motion. I have a motion from Mr. Russell to table.
Second.
I have a second from Ms. Holman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to item 9. Very similar, discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the ODC to enter into an economic development agreement with Oryx Plastic Company LLC to expand their Odessa facility. Again, under recommendation from our economic development team to table this. I would
Motion to
entertain.
table.
Motion from Mr. Russell,
Second.
second from Ms. Holman. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. It is tabled. Item number 10, discuss and consider a resolution authorizing the ODC to enter into an economic development agreement with Sparks Sales and Service, LLC, for an expansion of existing business. Entertain a motion to table.
Motion. So
Have a motion from Dr. Kirk.
Second.
Have a second from Mr. Harry. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Brings us to item number 11, our ODC committee and officer reports. I do believe the partnership met. Mr. Russell, would you like to comment?
Well, we haven't met since the last meeting, so nothing
Sorry.
new there.
Man, these days are running together. So no meeting. Okay, how about tax incentive?
I'll comment on that, and Melanie can fill in the blanks that I leave. The Tax Incentive Committee met. We did not have a quorum, which was disappointing. We had lost our chair and vice chair. I'm going to shortcut this as much as I can. It was a tedious meeting, although I do think it became productive at the end. Michael Forrest, who is a member of the committee, agreed to chair, and then I agreed to vice chair. He and I were going to work on, obviously, some routine notice of meetings with a clear understanding that we need a quorum, and that all taxing entities needed to be represented. There was a proposal that was made. We couldn't act on it, but the consensus was it was a retail operation that's going to be asking for a tax abatement, which that's just really not done. So via email, we were subsequently going to ask for a agreement to not recommend it to the city, but it pointed up the fact that we really needed to go back and pull the bylaws, really understand. I think they're probably pretty simplistically written, maybe, and that maybe they're not necessarily valid today. And so with legal help, we were going to try to go through that. Michael and I and the city staff to try to pull all that together. We're going to take our guidelines that were just approved last year, make sure they were still valid, and then return to the committee, tweak those if necessary, get those approved and recommended to the city council. So we're going to be working on that for the next couple of months, I would guess.
Excellent. Do you have a tentative meeting date for the next meeting?
We do not.
Okay, just curious. Any questions?
Anything else I missed?
No, I think you hit the high notes.
All right.
And we did forward to all that to what Christine sent it over, and I did forward it to you.
Excellent. Okay. No other discussion. We'll move on to, of course, anything to add from the advertising committee?
No, we'll just be spending our time this month kind of digging into the target industry survey with Christie and getting everything prepped to present to the board next meeting.
Wonderful. Downtown Odessa Grants Design Review Board. Mr. Robinson, Ms. Holman?
There wasn't anything that came up.
Okay.
Spring.
Wonderful. And with Compliance Committee, again, we did meet. The two of the items that were tabled were discussed, which will come back up at the next meeting. And then other than that, Mr. Mansky touched on we were invited by Oryx to go out and tour their facility through the Compliance Committee, which was absolutely amazing. If you guys ever get an opportunity to go out, I know Mr. Harry was there, David was there. No, you weren't there. I'm sorry. I keep seeing you, David. I'm putting you everywhere. But it was really, really an amazing facility, and I think that Tom said it right. But we had no idea we had something like that in Odessa. It is truly, truly impressive. So, what else am I missing for compliance? Good. Okay. That's going to bring us to item 12, which would be closed session. The board may recess into executive session in compliance with section 551.001 of the Texas Government Code. But as of today, I don't think we have anything to go into executive session unless you all have something different. Okay. Item 13, we would reconvene, but not necessarily. See, I didn't skip it this time, Dan. Okay. Item number 14, again, this is an open meeting, therefore any citizen comments on non-agenda items are welcome. Do I have any comments for non-agenda items today? Our wonderful, I hate to use the same term twice, illustrious mayor, Mr. Hovind, thank you for coming.
Thank you for, first of all, good afternoon. I'm sorry, I've got another meeting going on that I'm already late for. So I wanted to be able to address the ODC. I've never done this before, but I thought it was, based on the circumstances where we are as a community, I thought it was necessary. I want to take this opportunity to address the ODC directly in an open meeting. Pretty sure everybody's aware of the situation that we have been dealing with, really inherited as a city, and this is the situation we are in now with our water system. It's an inheritance that we are all dealing with. We can keep looking back and point the fingers, but the thing is, the obvious thing is that we're dealing with it, we're in charge, and we have to deal with it. We are finding ways within the city to address the issue. And it's not just the water system, it's the sewer system, and it's the valve system, and the bypass system. And there was decisions made 15 years ago that was, and basically is this one particular line on 42nd Street that has been an issue, that was an issue 13 years ago when it first broke. 2 years prior to that, there was a decision made by the staff then and the administration to do away with the valve crew and the survey crew and other essential departments and also essential positions that are now being realized today. Let me explain the valve crew. The system that was built that's aged, and it is an aged system up to over 70 years old. The valve system and the bypass system, which is the gate system, has to be exercised. That practice was ended 15 years ago. When it was ended, then 3 years later, there was a break on a 24-inch line. And they were still able to find a way to be able to isolate it, and it kept from shutting down the city. That did not happen 2 years ago, and it was the same line. It was just a little further west from the original break that had happened 13 years ago. But because that practice over 15 years ago was taken away from practicing the valve system, the ability to isolate did not occur. But because lack of communication more than 2 years ago, we don't know what the extent of how many valves were broken open or broken shut, what was exercised, not exercised, or was even attempted. Because of communication that is today, we wind up experiencing 3 breaks within 2 weeks, 2 within just less than 2 weeks, where that was happening on 42nd Street. One had affected the other. That first break that was fixed, that did affect the city, but it was low pressure. There were 12 valves that were broken that could not isolate the line or the bypass. So there were new methods that were applied to be able to lessen the impact. It was fixed, but one of the valves remained open. It was a decision not to deal with it that day on the Friday and go back and fix it on the Monday. It became a bigger problem. And that problem eventually wound up doing is we're losing 20 gallons a minute. And they realized it was bigger and bigger problem. And so it was then fixed, but then another situation happened directly just east of the broken valve on 42nd that had previously been broken. And that became a valve problem also. That was an 18-inch line, and that 8-inch line is a feeder. And because of that, it was unable to be able to isolate it. So decisions were made to shut down all the water tanks to keep them full, reduce the upper plane, and reduce the flow to 20 psi. What we've learned with the hospital, if they reduce down to 10, they're not able to circulate water. And those are some of the things that we were learned. And so there was a lot of lessons learned in that situation. So what we were able to do is we allowed the schools, we got to the weekend, that decision was made to do it on a Friday, so schools wouldn't be impacted. We minimized that. The university and OC was minimized. When that all occurred, then we went in there to reduce the flow and to lessen the impact. There was a critical point in time when we realized that one of the gate valves was shut, had been broken closed, and it remained that way, and that would affect it. To then shut down the source at the plant and minimize it to 3 hours was made. And when it was made, that repair was made within an hour, if not less. And then we brought up the flow. And then it's the 24 hours. There's a lot of misinformation and mistake, and what happens here is that the break was a day and a half. That's not true. The most minimal time that we shut down the plant was for 3. But because everybody doesn't separate the break, the repairs from the bowl, and neither does the media, so this occurred over a day and a half, and that didn't happen. We reduced prior 2 years ago from 3 days to 3 hours, and that was great work from the staff. My ask here today is come and speak to ODC is that there's no doubt that ODC and our sales receipts are healthy, and they have been. And we've always taken a conservative approach to how we wind up expending those dollars. The council had a discussion about revenue bonds. We don't disagree that ODC can do that. The council can do that. We can do that, and it's within our premise. The question that isn't asked that I posed on Tuesday is, because of what we're seeing in the report that we had, and the report we had that was praised, I may point it out that we're dealing with February financials that were not up to date, so don't start counting money if it's not on the report. Be conservative. But the question I pose is, yes, we have the ability to do revenue bonds. The question is, should we be doing revenue bonds? Because we do have a healthy line, and we do have a healthy money coming in. And the other question is this: we need help. We need resources. And we are turning every rock that we can to find those resources, from grants, from government money, federal money. I'm asking everybody. And that's the ask today. I'm tasking the ODC to help to research a legal way and means through language and legalities where we can address aging infrastructure. That's where we're at. And we need the help and the resources to start addressing it, because it's not just the water system, it's a sewer system. It's 500 miles of sewer system, 700 miles of water system, 3,500 valves throughout that system. We're experiencing this across the nation, from electrical grid to roads and bridges, and you're seeing it play out in your living rooms, on the internet. We're having breaks, collapses, and the amount is insurmountable. This is not 1990 anymore. And when we wind up doing this as a community for economic development, critical situations that change. The growth that we're experiencing is phenomenal. We need help to be able to keep up with it. We simply, one of the things is always be the last option for any government entity, is simply to go back to the taxpayer and tax them with more debt than we're already experiencing now. Our job is to maintain the system, improve the system, but also reduce the burden on our taxpayers. That should always be the last option, is to reduce, is issue debt. It should be the last resort.
Mr. Mayor, let me ask you, have we looked at any numbers yet specifically as to?
Chris, can you?
Oh, sorry.
Yep.
Thank you. My apologies.
It's okay, that's why I was looking at the lawyer. And so, look at final ways we need help to be able to reach your lawyer to be able to research that, Mr. Moore. You know, you guys hired him. We need to be able to go through ODC to be able to ask for permission to speak with him. But on top of that also is approach it from the state legislature and ask our representative, Brooks Landgraf, to help sponsor language that will allow communities like ours in the situation that we're in to be able to access monies that's already in the account and not necessarily just revenue bonds. Now that doesn't exist because there are some things that you can do as a 4A and do a 4B expense, but you have to go to the voters. That takes time and there's no guarantee. But is there an opportunity, you know, for language in the future because this aging infrastructure is going to continue? And so to ask and recruit the resources of our state representative and ask from the ODC to work with language of how we can address this, not just now, but in the future, because this is going to continue. Recruit Senator Sparks and have their influence work for us in Austin. So some options that I'm sitting here today, I want to be able to make that ask. We are doing everything we can. We're researching. We are already tasked the staff to start looking at resources, what it's going to cost to bring in a contractor for exercising of the valve system, because we just can't task anybody to do it. They have to know how to work it, what are the possibilities, we don't want another catastrophic event. The other thing is that we're tasking our engineering department to give us as close as possible estimations of what it's going to cost for that line replacement, how much of it, what's critical. We're still working with the other contractor to put in monitors to be able to monitor the system where we had started experiencing losses. One of the things I don't think anybody realizes is that we reported 34 breaks in January alone. Now it's turned up to 35 for the reason that those breaks happened in January. This one break that happened on Dawn and 42nd, the first one wasn't reported until the AT&T, they were having seepage into the cellar. And they couldn't determine where it was coming. They finally called it. They finally notified the city that they had water in their cellar. That's when we found that it was the line break. And what had occurred, it had broken, and it had broken on the bottom, and it was seeping, and it created a crater, and that precipitated to break further east. And so, and then the other break that happened on Grandview in Yukon was just a contractor. And, you know, and accidents happen. You know, these things are going to happen. He wind up being inside two easements, and he reacted, and when he pulled the auger, it wind up cracking and made a small problem into a bigger problem. But the thing is, the city, as size of the city of Odessa, experiencing the inability to be able to isolate for the reason is that we can't be able to work a valve system. The system was built for that. I can't guarantee that if the program had not stopped and continued, that we still wouldn't be dealing with some sort of an issue in the valves. You know, an aged 75-year-old system is going to come with its severe problems, especially when you're dealing with water, because it's a very, very aggressive mineral. But that's the situation today. I'm counting on the and pleading with the ODC to use all your resources to partner with the city and work together to find a solution, find a path that could give us a bump up, a relief to be able to access money that goes beyond what we have in budget. We have found the budget to streamline it, to be able to redirect resources. We've been doing this in the last 16 months. We made a commitment to get out of the extracurricular activity, and we've been doing so methodically, but carefully, with thought, with the least impact. But what we cannot cut, and we need to boost up, are the critical services. And we've done it with the police, we've done it with the fire, we're doing it with the boosting up the employees for the insurance. We're doing it with the solid waste and bringing it up and coming back up to a full, working 27 solid waste trucks once again. We're a year away from completing that. This is a task that's been going on for more than a decade. These are the things that we inherited. Not the things that have been created today, but what has been inherited. And this is what we're tasked to deal with. We can't ignore it, and we cannot afford to kick the can. This council has taken on the responsibility to no longer do that. I know you guys, you're very smart people, and I know that, these concerns also weigh heavily on you. We're all part of this community, and we need to start addressing it, and we cannot afford to delay anymore. We are dealing with a system that is operating completely beyond its life expectancy. We have situations throughout the city where we have sewer system that are in part of concrete that it's gone. I mean, the concrete is completely gone. The only thing that's there is the remnants of the hole that's there, and these are some things that we just wind up putting some $1.2 million, and we have an emergency situation going on just right there north of Business 20. It's 1,000 feet that we have to address immediately. We suspended all the commitments we have to do for delays and RFPs because it's an emergency. We cannot afford a catastrophic event. I don't think any of us want to be on that watch if that's occurs. It's not a matter of if, it's just a matter of when. So I implore you to reach out to Mr. Moore, put together a subcommittee, and see if we can find a solution. And I really believe that together we can find a solution. We can find a path to be able to start addressing this issue. And I think this is real critical for the reason is that we lost 28 million gallons this last break, 28 million gallons. Because of the price at what we are able to pay, that equated to $12,000. Now someone would say, that's not bad. Well, we're only considering that. We're not considering the contracts, the overtime, materials, things of that nature, but there's even something more telling. When businesses are affected, when restaurants are affected, and they have to shut down, that's lost wages, lost revenue they can't recoup. And I'm guarantee you that equates into the millions of dollars. And we're about businesses. We're about investment. We're about retention. And if that doesn't qualify, I don't know what does. I know there's a lot of particulars that are very thin, very narrow lanes in which the ODC and ODC monies that type A have to operate. I know this because I was right here sitting in that seat in 1996 when I helped create and wrote those bylaws for this ODC. I sat there through the election, we elected it, I voted for it, and I formed it. And now I'm the back end, and hoping to find a way for how it can give us relief and help the city, because the growth is going to continue. Thank you for your time, and I thank you for each and one for your service.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Any other comments on non-agenda items? All right. Item number 15, upcoming dates for future ODC board meeting. Tentatively, we have it at June the 13th at 2 p.m.
2 o'clock.
Yes, sir. Yeah, PM versus AM. Yes, sir. So now, I would like to ask, just because I don't know how it is for you guys, but two is a hard time for me. As kind of a business owner, is there any way we could consider moving our meeting out to say 4 towards the end of the day?
We do that with compliance anyway. Compliance meets at 4.
Are we gonna be meeting till 7? Because that doesn't work great for me. I mean.
I hope not.
2's hard, 4's hard, just whatever.
Would early morning be better?
Yeah, I'm open for, either, at the beginning of the day, at the end of the day is way easier for me.
8 o'clock's good for me.
Dr. Kirk?
I'm open for anything.
I'm on another board at 8 o'clock in the morning. It's really ideal for me.
Would 8 o'clock work better?
Fine for me.
Yeah, I don't care.
He's retired.
I'm working to get to where David's at.
Melanie, how's a morning for you? Just as difficult?
It's fine.
Tim?
Morning's fine.
So could we do 8 a.m. on June 13th? Does that work? Awesome. Let's do 8 a.m. on June 13th.
Is this, is it available? Is this venue available?
City employees don't work that early. It should be available.
Oh, yeah, this should be available. Yes.
You won't?
Okay.
I think,
Shouldn't be an
I
issue.
think I'm going
Okay.
to Mexico.
Let's see. Tentatively.
Yeah, Kaylee just said she
Amen.
would be unable to attend. I'm not gonna give the reasoning, I'm just gonna say this.
Yeah, well, don't worry, Kelly. We're gonna task Tom Mansky with bringing coffee. So there you go. So you'll be here then? Okay. All right. So Thursday, June 13th at 8 a.m.
Okay, now, the one thing to consider is that accelerates the 72 hours before.
For the posting.
So
So it has to be posted by 8 a.m.
It would have to
Friday.
probably, yeah, it's gonna,
Very
No.
latest.
yeah,
I'm sorry?
yeah, I'd bet.
That means at the very latest, 8 a.m. Monday morning, which means really it's.
Friday
It'll be a
afternoon.
Friday.
I think we typically do that anyway, though, don't we? I mean, I know we've missed it a few times
No,
lately.
I don't think that's been
Oh, yeah.
routine lately, it's been as Monday.
Okay. All right, 8 a.m. We can do it. I have faith in you, Tom. I know you can do it.
One other thing that I would ask us to think about too is, should we move our contract, when we have guests like Dr. Woodley here and other things, should we move those up to the top and get those out of the way before we do our contractor reports?
I think it's a great idea.
We're gonna find out what.
That was the
necessity does.
early discussion.
Gotta know to do that.
Then we can shift.
Shift them around.
Gotta play around.
Well, that and citizens' comments and everything else too, that might help a little bit with some other things as well.
Well, either way, I mean, once it's posted, it's in stone, but, I mean, for our next meeting, we could move this around without having to do that. You know what I mean? It's not saying, there's nothing in the rules that says you have to follow this exact template month to month. I mean, we could move all those up, so, yeah, I think we definitely need to do that. So, good point. Wonderful. Okay, any other business? I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So move.
So move.
Second.
That was like an amen from this side of the room. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
We stand adjourned. Thank you very much.
Y'all want to go home?
You in trouble again?